everyone for coming to the GIS Advisory Council meeting for April. And apologies once again for kind of rescheduling last minute again. As you all know, things happen and, things have to move around. So I definitely appreciate the flexibility on all of that. So we'll go through just a quick roll call as a means of kind of taking attendance for this meeting. So I'm Alfredo Herrera and I'm here. Scott, you here?
I'm here but eating. Sorry.
No worries.
Here but eating. All right.
Stuart.
Hi there. Present.
All right, cool. Greg.
Present.
All right. Dan.
Here.
All right. Is Gary Archambault here? Does not appear to be. Eric Snowden?
Present.
Perfect. Mark Hoover?
I'm here.
And Thad?
Yes, here.
Thank you. Is John here? I don't see him. All right. Emily?
Here. Can't unmute, but I'm here.
No worries. Let me see. Is Pete St. Pierre here? I do not see him either. We got Meg.
Here.
Excellent.
Here.
All right. I think that is everyone I see. We're only missing 3, so we can kind of go ahead. So thank you all for coming to this one. I think this one will be fairly quick in terms of just kind of it being a general overview, unless anybody has kind of any kind of burning questions or things they want to discuss. We're largely going to go through some update things. But first kind of general update that I want to give is the NISGIC maturity, geospatial maturity assessment is underway again this year for this year. So I will be kind of digesting some of those materials and sending them out to the relevant stakeholders soon, so that we can get those questions answered and fill out the updated GMA. I expect to do better this year than last time, not least of which of the fact that the GIS office exists now, so we will no longer get a D on on coordination. So that's good news. Before we even start, we should automatically do better by default. However, let's make sure that we go through the process, document it well, make sure we get all of the answers. Like I said, I will compile all of the, necessary kind of documentation to send out to the various stakeholders and make sure that we get the answers we need to fill out the survey appropriately. That being said, we recently attended the NISGIC mid-year meeting, had a lot of conversations with both federal stakeholders and our counterparts in other states. Lots of interesting conversations, not least of which around broadband and address mapping as a whole. There were some other kind of interesting takeaways of just general problems that people are having. It's all the kind of usual things, but it's definitely a good way to kind of level set and make sure that we're kind of, for lack of a better word, doing the right things, which I definitely believe we are. Beyond that, we're just kind of chugging right along. We're in the process of trying for a third time to hire our GIS analysts. So hopefully we will have some positive news on that front soon, and we will make those announcements accordingly as they happen. And I think that's all I got for kind of general, kind of broad reaching updates at this moment. So with that, I'd like to open it up for anybody to have any public comments or just bring up any topic. Nope.
I was, well, who else?
Yeah.
Did somebody have something? I'm not really, I don't have my thoughts formed fully yet, but, the geodata portal, do you have any updates on that, or like things that are being added, or any news on that front? And I feel like the other thing too, I was just going to mention is if I'm not at a machine where I have it bookmarked, like Googling it isn't working well.
Yeah,
So I don't
we've
know if there's any.
identified that for sure. So we have to do some search engine optimization stuff on our end to make sure that it kind of surfaces correctly at the top. So that's something that that we've discussed internally, and we're trying to come up with the best approach to fix.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And as far as like changes and updates, I mean, Emily will kind of give an update on some of the more long-term changes, but I think in the short term, the biggest thing that we're looking to do is update the partner pages into there's still going to like the individual partner pages are still going to be there, but we're going to also create a single partner page where we can kind of link to all of those kind of existing partners that we already have, but then also give a space or at least a link to resources from other partners, both at other state agencies and other levels of government, should they have data sites available. So we will be doing that work going forward, but right now we are working on kind of setting up the platform to allow for that. So that's going to be probably like the next big release on the geodata portal. Beyond just kind of as we staff up, we'll be able to kind of start digging in and kind of updating it in a more regular fashion, like, rotating things like rotating out the featured application and things like that, and updating like the metric statistics that we have on the page. Those are things that we wanted to take a much more proactive approach with, but due to staffing limitations and just the amount of time for any given human, it is a bit of a challenge to stay on top of that with just the three of us. So hopefully, as we are able to hire our analysts, we will be able to stay on top of that a little bit more.
That is good news. Thanks.
Yep. Anyone else? Anything else?
Just what other ways are you thinking of doing SEO there, Alfredo? Because like if you go search Google right now, just Connecticut open data, it goes right to
Deep.
Scott's page. Well, it goes Connecticut open data, just goes straight to
Yes.
Scott's, like comes the #1 result. And then you guys are cross-linked there. From there,
Yeah.
It does bring you down to like the hub for the broadband. And then for whatever reason, DOTs is like the third result. But I mean, have we gone through and come up with a list of tags and search terms that you're going to want to kind of make sure go straightly to the geodata portal, or no?
Not yet. We're still in the process of thinking that, unless
Okay.
Scott has some input on that.
I mean, it is cross-linked, right? You can get from the main data.ct.gov geodata portal is, you got to scroll a little bit, but it's there.
I just wanted to police Greg's language. It is our data portal. It's not my data portal.
I'm sorry.
For
I'm
all
sorry.
state
Scott,
agency
thank you.
partners.
Fair point. The state's open data portal.
There we go. So much better.
Yeah, so we haven't like we're to the point where we've kind of identified the issue. We know we need to do some SEO, but we haven't really sat down to think about what terms we need to kind of apply and insert to make that happen yet. So that's an ongoing discussion. I'd be happy to have you in that conversation if you have any input.
Sure, more than happy to help any way I can with our data portal.
Sounds great. Anything else? Anyone else? All right. Next, so we'll move on. The next point would be some kind of administration. I don't have any kind of changes to make as far as work groups or anything else. I think we're in a fairly good place on administratively. So unless there's something that someone wants to discuss on that front, I'm okay to move on to discussing and doing updates on the priority topics. All right. So we'll move on to the priority topics. First one is, as always, a hot topic is the imagery and LiDAR acquisition. So I'll give this update. I've been in fairly constant communication with the folks from Dewberry. They are very much hard at work, getting the planes in the air. Typically, at any given day when it's clear, they got 3 planes in the air, 1 for LiDAR and 2 for imagery. The one for LiDAR is based out of Plainville. The ones for imagery are based out of North Philadelphia. They just come up here and fly around and then go back. That is what that is. I'm going to do a quick present here. Just a second. Share my screen momentarily. So this is the latest update from Dewberry. So this is the imagery update. So that is roughly represents about 64% completion on the imagery side. We were informed this morning that there are some areas that did have a little bit of snow cover when they flew because it was on the 30th when we had a slight little blanket. So like this area around here, just like Chester had some snow on the ground. So we're gonna kind of have a discussion about reflying that area. But apart from that, they've been getting after it. You see the planes doing all the crazy zigzags all day long. And then on the LiDAR side, they are at about 35%, 36%. Once again, it's 1 plane, so it's a little bit slower going, but they do tend to fly more flights and longer than the imagery planes because sun angle is less of a concern there. So in here, gray indicates areas that they've already flown and they've done an initial QA/QC check on the data just to make sure that it looks okay and doesn't look all like way off from what they're expecting. Obviously, from there they have to really get into the process of reviewing it. But this is a kind of like a good indication of kind of where they're at with all of that. As always, this process is ongoing. And Shri and the Dewberry team are more than willing to talk to anybody about potential buy-ups and kind of external upgrades. If you have any questions about kind of how we're handling things or what we're doing, feel free to ask me. Otherwise, if you just, want to get additional products from Dewberry, just feel free to reach out. You can choose to CC me or not, but I'm going to find out no matter what. So, there's that. Uh, Beyond that, I think Emily and I have been kind of working pretty well on kind of developing what an MOA would look like to kind of get the hosting of this stuff kind of sorted out for the next, at least until the end of 2026. As far as funding is concerned, we're still kind of hammering out some of the details of what it all includes, but I think we're, making good progress, and we anticipate having the MOA either executed or close to executed by the time that we start actually receiving pilot data. At least that's my plan and expectation. Beyond that, I do realize I still do need to do some other MOAs for kind of funding transfers from from the other 2 agencies that were contributing. But beyond that, like I said, the project is progressing nicely and it's doing pretty well. Any questions? I am surprised there are not more questions about the imagery.
Well, I think you've kept us abreast, Alfredo, and I think we're kind of trusting the process.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to Thad to talk about the parcel drafting standards group and the work that they've been doing.
Alrighty, hey everyone. As Alfredo said, we are in very comfortable positions. I'd have to say that at this point we're literally fourth in inches on the parcel data creation standard. We're at the shine and polish and button and hem and fix and iron standpoint. The document is probably about 99.9% written. So at this point, it's just going through making sure that the grammar is correct, making sure that there aren't any leftover edit marks or comments or things like that in the document, and then just formatting. So that's basically where it is. So I could easily see this being ready by spring New York timeframe. And going from there. So yeah, so super happy with how it all went and how it all went down. Great contributions from everyone on the team, and really proud of that. So I think it's something that will be very useful to people and something that we can dovetail right alongside with the CAMA standard, for instance, and the parcel data standard from the attribute aspect. So yeah, it's fantastic and looking great.
All right, thanks, Thad. Any questions for Thad on the parcel drafting standards? All right, moving right along then. So now I'd like to hand it off to Mike Tull and David to kind of talk about the CAMA working group and the work they've been doing, along with the parcel data collection for this year. Go ahead, guys.
Okay, thanks, Alfredo. Hi, everyone. Mike Toll here, Deputy Director at WestCog. And I started off in this CAMA standard before the GIS office formed. And now it's kind of in a position where I'm passing the baton, but it's nice because it's nearly completed anyways. So that's our current situation is we have created an existing model that is being used. It's been adopted by the CAMA vendors. We have one more draft version after we've seen it in action. We want to make a few edits and changes to that. So that's still being vetted. That won't be part of this year's collection. The overall goal is to get all those reports to be as identical as possible. Right now, they're very similar, but they're not identical. And let's see. I recently had a discussion about making some additional changes that just came up. So this is just new ideas I've been having. No, never. I know I know. So no one's even heard about this. I just thought this was recently discussed with my executive director, but it was about identifying the change of building footprints. And can you match that with the CAMA data for livable space? We include livable space for all the floors, but the building footprint does not capture the living space of all the floors. So it might be worthwhile to get a first floor living space attribute from the CAMA data or some way to hash it out for assessors to really get to flag all those properties that they can go and chase tax dollars for the assessment. So that was something that was kind of bubbling around.
I think that's a terrible idea, Mike.
Hey, your taxes, everyone. Thanks, Jenny. So anyways, the process now is, I guess we're now a working group as part of this advisory council. I guess I'm in it, and I'm trying to reconcile what that means and put that together. But hopefully there isn't much work left to be done on this. And anything else I pass to David Lukens to share. But that's kind of where we're at. We're in this transition state.
Thanks, Mike. And yeah, Mike has been super helpful in helping us figure out what the hell we're doing, because it was not super clear what we were actually supposed to do. But once we talked to CAMA vendors, I've met with all of the CAMA vendors, and they all already know what to do. It's great. There's so much work has already been done, so we're in a really good spot. Really, we're trying to just focus on making sure that what is already in place is being followed. So additional changes may or may not be welcome. But what we really want to this year especially, we're going to have a couple sessions, like listening sessions with COGS, and try and talk through some final issues, because there are just a remaining cluster of towns that don't have a match between their parcel geometry and the CAMAs. There's just no way to connect them. And there are also other weird cases where we have this extra field in the CAMA report that is a GIS pin that's supposed to come from the state according to the schema, but nobody knows where that ever came from. So cleaning up some of those little things like that is really where we're at now. And we just want to make sure that there's as much compliance as possible so that it enables us to make a nice, clean statewide parcel viewer with some CAMA attribution added in that can be useful for a lot of different purposes. Eric.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to, wasn't quite sure from what was said. There's not going to be any changes to the canned CAMA reports for the major vendors. Is that correct? Because I've already received probably, I think 5 or 6 out of our 38 towns have already sent me their stuff. I'm just wondering if it's going to get kicked back.
So there were 3 fields added in a version 6, and I talked those over with all of the vendors. They said it was fine, but to be honest, like this year, if there are 3 extra fields, I don't think we need to go back for those. I think we can clip those off this year and try and build those in. I'm willing to listen to other thoughts on that, but I think really we want to be able to just encourage compliance with what's there already. And so if those 3 fields become a stumbling block, I don't think we need to fight that. Personally.
Okay, but the CAMA reports that you're looking for are named the same as they were last year. It's that OPM 7-100L. Okay. Carl, I think you verified that for me the other day. So just want to make sure.
Yes.
Assessors really love to be bothered multiple times, as we all know. So
sarcasm detected.
Yes, Meg.
Hi, so I know that we're still, in early stages and stuff. I was working on trying to use some of the parcel data, and I ran into some snags, and I was just wondering if you could, some of the issues that I faced were naming conventions, like the name and how just even the data was packaged up. I think there was one geodatabase where it was for Westport. It wasn't named. It was just like parcels GDB. So I was just wondering what the plan is for cleaning up how the data is presented online, like as far as naming conventions and things like that.
I mean, that's a problem with, the majority of the parcels are named just parcels. So it's not excellent. So we're going to be asking everyone to try and make those changes before they submit them. And we're going to be providing for the future, because, honestly, by the time we realized where we were in this process after Eric Lindquist left and we took it over from him, it was a little bit late in the game to really be making significant changes and demands of COGS and municipalities. So we're going to try our best to get people on board with a few small things that they can do to make that easier this year. And then it's really going to be a target for next year to codify all naming, not just the fields within the files, but the file names themselves, and then how the files are submitted, right? So right now, I think Southeastern Connecticut COG submits all of their towns in one geodatabase, which is actually it's awesome if that's all you're using. But then once you have to try and merge those things, it's not optimal. So we really want to try and develop further guidance on how to fix some of those small things that are, it's really actually pretty low effort, and we just need that little bit of push to make that easier to use. And then also this year, we will be writing a very full compliance report. Once all of the data comes in, we're going to note all of those things. We're going to note any locations. I have an R script that I can run that will tell us, okay, where did the fields not match? Where did this not match? And we can put that report together and say, all right, here's really where we need to sort out the issues. obviously, perfect compliance on every single little thing is going to be difficult and is going to continue to take time, but we're getting really close, and it's just kind of pushing some of those things that make it really difficult to use, like you're talking about, Meg. So we do have a plan for that. We've got documentation, and we're going to be sharing.
Sure. And if you need, just, I know, as a private consultant, I have a different perspective on, how this will be used from, say, many other places. If you want, me to offer, some eyes on it or take a second look, or if you need any, just another pair of eyes on it, I'm happy to offer feedback or participate in anything where, any kind of review, just because, you know, we just have different needs, the private consultants, where we would try to, like, pull it all together in a statewide set, or serve it up, on our server as a service or something like that. So yeah, if you just, if you ever want to chat about it and get a different perspective, I'd be happy to share my thoughts
Always happy to take additional
in a
input. Thank
nice
you.
way.
I don't mind either way. I like
Thanks.
mean, cruel criticism is also useful.
It's crap. No, it's great, and I love the effort and I appreciate all the work going into it. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions for David or Mike? All right, then I will continue to leave it with David to talk about statewide addressing and geocoding.
I'm back. So as I've reported before, in the process of making our broadband maps, we increased the number of unique address points or locations that we had in the state from around 900,000 to about 1.4 million. We're going through the process of trying to get additional data sets from inside and outside the state to use as a to create a verification process. So what we're thinking is we're just going to, throw everything into a giant pot. Any data, any address lists we can get from, say, the DMV, Department of Revenue Services, the Secretary of State, put them all in there and try to create an accuracy rating based on the number of times they appear, and also a glossary of naming conventions so that we have better match rates in a geocoder when we're ready to do that. Right now, the goal is to combine Dan's 911 layer, utility locations, service locations from Eversource UI and the municipal service distributors, the DMV, DRS, and the Secretary of State. If anyone else has any other great ideas about where to find a big nasty list of Connecticut addresses in any format, I don't care. We'll clean it. I would love to hear from you. And if you have any thoughts on more local sources, that's okay too. We can find a way to aggregate those and weight them differently spatially. So would love to do that, because what we're really trying to do is find a way to narrow down what addresses need verification. That can then help us add in our unique identifier that will then match parcels and CAMAs and all of that sort of stuff. So we really want to try and create a more complete foundational data set that links addressing across CAMA and parcel data and to any other of those foundational data sets that is possible, building footprints, etc. So any thoughts on addressing and places where we can get lots of lists of addresses? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, if I can chime in on that point, like this would be a good way for anyone on this group to, like, if you know of a list of addresses that is, encompasses large regions or has, good coverage or is fairly complete, even partial lists of addresses would be useful for us. We're just trying to kind of vet use a weighting system to kind of vet the authenticity or the chance of it being a real address, and kind of minimizing the chance of missing something so that we can have as complete a list as possible, in lieu of, being able to, pull it directly from the municipalities, which is something that we will work towards eventually. It's just, in order to kind of get a good baseline, this is something that we are trying to do in this way.
And again, the other
go ahead.
utility of the process is that glossary that will allow us to have a bunch of different alternates and significantly increase the matches through any geocoding process. So even more reason that like anything anything you might have, we can throw in the bin and process it together.
Yeah, and to answer Thad's question, yes, we have had conversations with Secretary of State about the voter registration lists. Mark, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I know I've worked with a lot of towns, or some towns in our region, getting their addresses into NextGen, and I know a lot of municipalities use that for their dispatch and have like a really good set of addresses that they work with on that. And I know one of the issues we always have is it's such a cumbersome process to get it into the NextGen format and all that. But it seems like a lot of municipalities are using the same data and the same system at least, and we each have our own little address points that are all updated at different times. And then when you have neighboring towns, they're all using different addresses and there's no real good way to combine them. So I don't know, as far as your like attributes go, if you have any thoughts on trying to make it usable for that kind of a system.
Yeah, so I have a written up. I haven't shared it yet. Waiting for the boss man. But we do have a schema written up that is made to match NENA standards and match 911 standards, but also incorporate some additional matching fields, right? Because for me, that's really the key is whether you're going to be using it like I have for broadband or something else. We really want to allow for easier matching of those address data sets across each other. And then that will allow over time for us to formalize some of those address standards that are currently all over the place across the state, and push towards one single format that we can share across, and that updating can then happen in a more formalized, more automated fashion. So if there are examples of things that you're seeing that are causing issues, I'm happy to, I'd love to see some of those. I'm aware of those standards and we're trying to incorporate those, but I don't work with them every day. So there's every likelihood that I'm missing something. So I'd love to hear, more details about possible snafus there.
Yeah,
sounds
and
good.
I think
Thanks.
one thing I'll add to that, I think it's like as we start or as we get to the point where kind of like our document where we kind of explain the schema and explain some of the intent around the schema, it gets a little bit closer to completion. We're like, pretty much there on it. We just have a little bit of tweaking to do before we kind of send it out to some other agencies as we do kind of these kind of collection efforts, if you will, to kind of get these additional addresses. I would be very interested to share that with this group, to kind of get your feedback, see if there's something we're missing, if there's something that we're just going in a wrong direction with. And there's a lot of subject matter expertise in this group here, and I would love to be able to leverage that kind of expertise and advice and making sure that we're doing this in the right way. So, like I said, as soon as we are ready to share, we will share that with this group and then, solicit your feedback in that way. Megan, go ahead.
I was just wondering, have you also contacted, I don't want to throw Gary under the bus when he's not here, but is DPH going to provide any addressing data to you?
They are working on it. Yes, I have spoken to Gary
Oh,
about
okay.
it. Yep.
Yeah, they're a good source.
Yeah, I explained the ask, and he said he was going to go speak to their chief epidemiologist to kind of see, how and in what way they are willing to share. Anyone else? All right, we'll continue on to the next update point, which is also David on the state of broadband mapping.
Yes. So we just completed, just closed the window for the first broadband data submission from ISPs for this year. Last year we had started out with a plan of only receiving data once a year, but anyway, the ISPs are submitting data twice a year to the FCC, so we might as well get it twice a year too, so we can keep up with the FCC and process the data in our own way, seeing as the FCC's maps are still challenged and also provide a unique set of challenges for ISPs. I mean, so one thing we're seeing now is that as ISPs have tried to convert to the FCC's formats, when they are submitting data to the FCC, they are missing addresses that they are submitting to us because that they either have not been able to match the address or didn't bother, or that they haven't bothered to challenge that address, et cetera. So we're now trying to keep two separate workflows of how we manage our broadband addresses, one to keep up with the FCC and make sure we know what data they have, but also using our own address layer to make sure that we can account for addresses that are either not in the FCC's fabric or are represented in a different way in the FCC's fabric because of their own definitions of what a location is. So for the FCC, a location is an individual building in a unique parcel. And so that means that things like condos can be really wonky. It means that the Trinity College Gymnasium has 46 residential units in it because they didn't know how to deal with that building when they saw it in a parcel. So we have received all availability data from ISPs already. We had a couple stragglers with subscription data, and all but one have now submitted that. So we should be able to at least produce our version on our address layer within the next week or so. We should be able to update that map, and then it'll take me a couple more weeks to match up with the CostQuest data and keep working through the crosswalk there. But we will be able to, within April, we should have some updated maps up on the broadband mapping hub. I think that's really the big update.
That's great. Thanks, David. Does anybody have any questions for him on the broadband stuff? All right. Thanks, David, for covering all those topics. I appreciate it. Next up is the GIS Clearinghouse Working Group. I'll pass it off to Emily Wilson to kind of go over what she's been doing there.
Thanks, Alfredo. And I wanted to go back a couple steps with David to the parcels. And I shared some thoughts with Carl and Alfredo already. I think there are two sides of it. There's what you answered, like the back end and submission, and then there's how the GIS office shares it out to the public. So right now, Meg, you indicated it's one giant, very large database to download. So even if you want parcels for one town, you have to download the whole state and some other things. So I was aware of that, and kind of as my clearinghouse hat, I shared those with the GIS office, and Carl was able to answer that some things are in the works. So I just wanted to reiterate that side of the parcels as well as the data collection efficiencies too. And Carl and Alfredo could share my comments with you, David, if you need to see them, but I'm not, however you guys want to handle that. Okay, so the data clearinghouse. I don't have a huge update this time. We've been, oh, there's a little heart on there. I've never seen that before from Megan. We've been working on our document. We are getting close. We have our sections, and each person on the group generally is writing one or two of those in terms of condensing all of our thoughts from our research across the country, as well as our internal thoughts and brainstorming. So it's coming together. I suspect we will have a pretty final draft to share with the advisory committee here by their next quarterly meeting. We're getting that close, so we should have everybody's pieces in, I think, in 2 weeks, our meeting, and then we'll start to synthesize those together. So I don't have any specifics right now. I will say that we're writing it kind of on two sides. one is our wish list and the other is building on what we have. So I want to say improvements, enhancements, growth of the existing geoportal. So we're kind of doing both, that with the wish list, and then eventually we'll turn it over to the GIS office to try to figure out how to implement some of those items. So it's going well. A number of people on here are on the working group, and I really just want to thank everybody for taking the time to do that writing and synthesizing those sections.
That's great. Does anybody have any questions for Emily or me on the GIS Clearinghouse Working Group or the Geodata Portal? All right. I guess not. And so now we'll kind of move on to the last kind of discussion topic, and but not least, and that is the strategic planning working group and some of the work that Carl has been doing and kind of getting that off the ground. So go ahead, Carl.
Thanks, Alfredo. Good afternoon, everyone. So we are starting the first of presumably many annual strategic planning documents, and this comes from the statute. It's supposed to occur every year with a 5-year window out in front, and the format is not fully described in the statute, but we're following other states' geospatial strategic plans, such as Indiana, and the NISGIC guidance for strategic planning. So we're using a templates that already exist. We have a technical working group formed, and several people on this council are also participating. I appreciate your help with that. It's a mix of state level folks, COGS, local municipality folks, and academics. I can either share or go through the list if people are interested. The plan components basically are the following. We have an initial data gathering phase, and that includes a review of literature and different similar plans that other people have done. I should note that we're going to very closely use the work that Emily and her group did in 2021, which turns out to be a very good baseline. So basically, we have a baseline that occurred before all the GIS office stuff occurred, and Alfredo got hired as the GIO. So it gives us a very nice place to start and see what the changes are going forward. So that's a very fortunate bit of data that we have that we don't have to create. There's also going to be some interviews and surveys, and those are well underway now. In fact, we're going to meet it in a few minutes about those. The interviews are going to be with the subject matter experts, and the surveys are going to go out to domain groups like assessors and people in health and other groups that are, in an ancillary sense, deal with GIS data and geospatial technology, but maybe aren't quite as tightly wound into the day-to-day governance and running that a lot of people in this meeting are in. So that's kind of split into two parts. I will be reaching out to many of you in this meeting to conduct interviews, and you'll start seeing those emails the next week or so. Eventually, after we compile the data and the research, we'll come up with several themes, roughly 5, maybe more. And out of those 5, we'll also have a list of recommendations. Kind of the rough schedule is we have a project plan that's finished. We have the review of literature being written. That's also well underway. We have a communication plan, which includes the questionnaires and surveys. That's done with a first draft now. We're going to begin testing these questionnaires and interviews shortly for validity and smoothness. Then there's going to be in May and June, early June, there's going to be a synthesis and data writing, draft writing. And then the first week or so of early June, we'll have a finished first draft. And so the GIS Advisory Council then is going to have kind of 2 points of entry into this process. The first is that many of you will provide your points of view in interviews or surveys or both. And then in June, when we have a draft, then we're going to have we'll present the full document for comment. And that way, your thoughts and comments can be incorporated into the document. So things that you can do to help me and our group. If you have specialized lists of contacts through your geospatial work or some kind of specific domain work like assessors or public health or anyone like that, please send those along so we can have we can distribute the survey out as far as possible. And then just look for the invites for interviews, and then I will set up a time with you. Expect the interviews to be about 25 to 30 minutes, and I'll try to do them late in the week on later in the afternoon when it's least offensive time for people. So with that, I welcome any questions or comments.
All right. Thanks for that update, Carl. We sure nobody has any questions or comments on the strategic plan stuff. This is this is a pretty big deal to kind of get this going and off the ground. I'm really looking forward to kind of the work that they're going to output so that we can actually, build the what will be the final strategic plan, later this year. And the more feedback this group can give, the better. As Carl indicated, we will be reaching out to everyone to kind of discuss and interview, but this is a good forum as any to talk about it as well. All right.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'll ask a quick question. Like, what do you think the most challenging part of developing the strategic plan is going to be?
First is the just the data gathering part is a lot of work, and then trying to I think balance the competing interests and demands of a lot of different stakeholders, and then turning that into an operational plan, which is very late in the process is the operational part, but balancing those factors out and coming up with a few maybe several key themes that get the most bang for the buck from the data collection phase.
Yeah, that's okay, cool. All right, just wondering.
Thanks for the question.
All right. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just want to say I support the planning process, and I think at this point it's kind of hard to get our questions together because they're, it's
That's
all
fair.
And I look forward to having lots of questions and forms of input. And Carl actually already answered a question I was going to ask about, kind of like putting that plan to action. So I was kind of curious what you're going to do for that. But it sounds like the plan is going to be overseen and meant very intentionally to be utilized. So that sounds good to me. Look forward to seeing how it goes.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
go ahead. Alfredo.
Yeah, I was gonna say to kind of add to that answer, I do foresee that being kind of for lack of a better analogy, it's going to be kind of like the guiding North Star for the GIS office. This is what we are, aiming towards. This is what we are trying to do and the way we're trying to do it. So the themes here and the goals that we set here are, really going to be kind of our proverbial line in the sand of like, this is what we're aiming for. This is what we're trying to do. So to also kind of also expand on for Meg's question is, I think for me, like one of the hardest thing is just kind of, balancing what does that vision look like? What are things that are going to be truly important? What things are going to be achievable? What things are going to be in the short term versus the long term? There's a lot to kind of balance there, and it's not going to be easy, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not here for easy.
And I will just say that this is the goals that the themes we find out are, there's a 5-year plan. So this is not something that is, all short term. Some of the things may be short term, but a lot of them are still out, out several years potentially, and they'll be updated year after year.
Of course. All right. Anyone else? All right. So we move through the agenda fairly quickly. So this is we're now at a point where we're kind of in another opportunity for kind of bring up anything else that people may want to discuss or revisit that we either have talked about or not talked about. Any kind of random questions? All right. So I guess with that, we can move to adjourn. I'll give you guys half an hour back of your day, and I appreciate the time on this Thursday to kind of talk about all of these things. It's important for us to kind of get a good sense of how you guys are feeling about the work that we do and where we're at with it all. It's a good mechanism for us in the GIS office to kind of, as a sanity check, if you will, just to make sure that, like we can talk about things and kind of like come up with a plan, but it's definitely good to have this group here as a way of making sure that we are going, in fact, the right directions. The decisions we are making are, in fact, what the proverbial right ones. And so I definitely appreciate all of your time and your feedback. And, if you have any questions outside of this venue, please feel free to reach out. And with that, if you have a long weekend ahead of you, enjoy that. Otherwise, have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alfredo.
Thank
Thank you.